Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're looking at a fourth submission by Meg of her horse Blynk. Now, Blynk is barefoot, as we can see there. The foot looks like it's in pretty good shape. I don't see any problems there. And of course, the most important thing is they have a really nice arena to be able to school their horses in. And if you're going to ride barefoot, that's what you need. Notice there's no rocks in this, because even small rocks will create a great difficulty for your horse and can cause your horse to be sore very quickly. It's part of the problem with riding a horse barefoot. But if you have good footing like this and a good shape to your horse's foot, which this one seems to have, you might be able to get along with it. Here in California, we have a broader problem because our footing is just so sandy and so rough and abrasive that it's very hard to ride horses with no shoes on. Very few people have these kind of composite footing arenas that allow us to do this work barefoot and keep them that way. But great job here. This is looking really good. And I've compared this video with what we saw in our last video, which is something everyone might want to do. But we see much more active swing in the walk here. Stretch is deeper and more consistent into the contact. So this is developing really, really well. It's exactly what we want to see. Like how the turn is nice and wide. There's no change in the rhythm there. You see, she makes the turn onto the center line. And once again, as she changes in the opposite direction, just a nice big wide turn. Once again, not losing the rhythm, and that's the most important thing. Once again, remember, if we lose the rhythm, we're losing the horse over its back, and we're losing the gymnastic quality of the exercise. So in everything we do, we strive to keep that horse working like a metronome every step. Because that's how we evaluate how correct the work, once we have the horse working over its back, is going to be, how much value it's going to have for the horse in terms of ultimately developing the horse. So again, better stretch there. She comes there. She's got a little bit up there, and we can see how that sort of stopped her back legs there a little bit. But once again, this walk looks better than it did in the last video. It's more swinging and active, as I said, and the stretch is more consistent into the contact, and there's a bigger step out of the horse. Doesn't look so much like it's stuck in mud. Like right there, that's a nice big active swinging walk, and that's what we want to create, you know. When a horse is working up through its back, it's very much like when you surf or boogie board. Here in California, we spend a lot of time watching surfers, but it's an important concept to understand that we want the horse's back to lift up like a wave lifting us up and carrying us towards the shore. That's what happens when a horse's back comes up. It stabilizes, and it stabilizes us upwards. And that's the wonderful feeling that we're looking for. That gives us that feeling, the horse lifting us up into the air, which is essentially what they're doing, but that only happens if a horse is correctly working through its back. So good swing in the walk here once again. Good active walk here. What a beautiful place to ride a horse, by the way, there that you have. Folks are lucky to have such a big ring with good footing in it. Good leg yield here, good rhythm. Leading slightly with the shoulders, which is what we want to see. Moving the horse into the outside rein, that's very good. Even showing a nice bend, and actually we can see how the horse even started to stretch a little deeper through the use of the leg yield, so that's very good, exactly what we're looking for. Once again, as I said, now we can still see a little bit of a dip behind the saddle on this horse, and the belly is still a little bit hanging out in the flanks a little bit, but that gets better as we go on here, so that tells us the right things are starting to happen. But those are the things that we want to pay attention to, and we'll see that hole back there behind the saddle will start to fill up over time here as the horse gets more active and begins to bring its back up. Remember that we're doing here, the process of stretching a horse is part of the horse's developmental process of pulling the shoulders up through the withers. This is what gives any horse a more uphill stance. Actually changes their physical appearance. And by the way, the value of the horse, for those of you who are concerned about such things. People think that whatever they have is what they're given and nothing can change. Well, nothing could be further than the truth. If a horse is undeveloped over its back, we can change the horse dramatically in how it's going to appear. Really nice shoulder in here. Very good rhythm. No change of the rhythm. Like I brought the horse right into that outside rein. That's really well done. And as I said, this is all so much more consistent than in your last video, so this is really coming along really, really nicely. Good consistent swing in the step there as you change direction. And just know that this will even continue to get better and better and better as the horse builds strength across his top line. You'll get more of that feeling, if I talk about it, the wave lifting you up and carrying you forward. But you're well on your way here. This is a big improvement of what I've saw, once again, going back and looking at the last video that you did. This is so much more consistent. The stretch is deeper. The walk step is deeper and more active. You know, the beautiful thing about this system is it not only teaches the horse to balance itself and carry itself and therefore carry you, but it teaches you to do the same thing because we're not hanging on the reins. We have to learn to balance. So when you see so many people today, they start off and the first thing that, instructors are telling them, shorten your range, get your hands up and grab hold of the mouth of the horse. Well, if you do that, you will balance off the mouth of the horse for the rest of your life. And we see so many upper-level riders today that I would say if you cut the reins, they would fall off backwards because they're hanging on so hard to the mouth of the horse. Really good swing in the walk here. Excellent stretch down, just more active. You notice how the deeper the horse stretches, the bigger the step becomes, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking to find that optimal position for the horse where all the machinery inside of there, so to speak, all the gears, meaning the skeletal structure, are all working as nature intended them to do so. People just don't realize when they start horses how long it takes to strengthen a horse's back before you put weight on. And that's exactly what happens to all these horses that end up dipped in the back the way we see this one to some degree. Is they get on too soon and they do too much riding too soon, and those that muscles and tissues are very soft when a horse is young. So before long the back starts dropping, and if we don't do something about it, it stays that way and just gets worse and worse. A great walk work here today. I just love how big and swinging and open this horse has become. Really, really good there. Yeah, very nice walk. And it's so wonderful when we get that sense of the horse swinging and active over its back, and how the session with the horse must just continue to flow forward. I see so many people, they're all concerned about transitions and all these kinds of things that they want to do over and over again, thinking this is going to help the horse. If the horse isn't working over its back, transitions aren't going to do anything but put more pressure on the front feet. So, that's really a misconception. Until you get the horse over its back, you really don't want to be doing much stopping and starting. You want to get the horse flowing over its back and keep it that way. Then the horse will develop, and then things like the difficulty between gaits, transitioning from walk to trot, for instance, becomes very easy. The horse can do it very nicely. So that was really good. I like how you started her there, and she started to be a little bit hollow as you started off, but you immediately got her to stretch back down. Very nice. And just like the work in the walk, this shows a much deeper stretch than we saw before, and quite a bit more activity and swing. Still got a ways to go, but it's improving. Really good. So much longer through the neck now and stretching, and that's what we're looking for. Now she could be a little more active right there. You just want to send her on a little more actively. But once again, this stretch is good. We do want to be careful not to go too fast. This is the whole thing. Very often people think that, the trainers are telling them, go forward, go forward, go forward. And they think that means to run around the arena very fast. It doesn't mean that. Forward means to engage forward under the body. And that we see this horse starting to do. So remember that every horse, there's a speed at which if we go too fast, the horse can't deal with the inertia moving through its body, and that will drive it onto the forehand. So we're always looking for that optimal space where it's not too fast and not too slow. Fast enough to get a good optimal swing of the hind legs under the body and working through the back, but not so fast that it drives the horse onto the forehand. So once again, a couple of little inconsistencies there. So she tries to come up, but you're dealing with this in exactly the right way, in that you're immediately putting your leg on, just sending the horse forward back into the contact again. And even there, when she stumbles a little bit, that's what they're going to do occasionally, is they find their balance. But you did a great job of just sending her back on. Now, this is looking pretty optimal here. Now, notice she's picked up a little pace there. The footfalls are a little more active, and there's a little more active swing in the back end. And she comes up and resists a little bit, but you're doing a great job of putting her right back down there. So that's really well done. Once again, coming by the side there, you get a good view of her back there and her belly. As I say, we see she's still hanging a little bit through those flanks, not quite pulling up through her abdominal wall yet, but she's starting to a little bit there. That's starting to look a little better as we're going here. Now, once again, this is a much better trot than what we saw before. If you go back and look at your previous video, this has got a lot more swing to it, so that's really good. Once again here, she comes up, and you do just the right thing of just sending her back forward again. That is, forward and underneath herself, like that, back into that deeper stretch. So this is very good work and shows much improvement over what we saw the last time. Now, what you could do a little bit sometimes is use your upper body a little more than you do, in that when she gets a little hollow, come a little behind the motion, stretch up and back a little bit, and send the horse out ahead of your leg. That will help you get her there. And then, of course, once the horse gets over her back again, then you want to ride with the motion, that is, directly over your leg. But if you feel like she gets a little behind your leg, it's perfectly okay to stretch up and back. Just when you do that, be sure and lift your chest up so that we don't round our shoulders down. Now, this is really good right here. This is the best I've seen this horse trot, right in there. It's really nice. Had a really good swing coming through there. Good, very useful shoulder four there coming down the long side. Got to keep rising with it. See, when we sit, it kind of shortens her up a little bit. So at this level, remember when a horse is not developed through the back, we don't want to sit on it until it can hold us up. That's the biggest mistake people make with dressage, is thinking that they're not doing dressage if they're not sitting to the trot. And especially things like, lunge lessons, where people lunge horses hollow and with somebody sitting to the trot for an hour at a time. It destroys the horse's legs and it destroys the rider's back. So be aware. That's the biggest thing to remember. In correct riding, not only are you going to have a lot less chance of accidents with the horse. Very nice in that right there. Keep rising there. But you're going to save yourself as well, as I was saying, because sitting to a hollow horse makes your back move in the wrong way and put a lot of pressure on your hips and your lower back. So we want to protect that all the time. That's why it's so important to get a horse working correctly over its back before we sit on it. It's protecting us as well as it's protecting the horse. Good leg yield here. I love how that rhythm came around there, and she stayed really bent that time. That was really good. You kept a good steady rhythm. And all the way back in that stretch. And once again, I feel like you're really starting to get this horse all the way there now. This is a much better trot, what I'm seeing here today, than I've seen in the previous videos. She's starting to swing much deeper under her body, and it's much more consistent. You've gotten more length out of the neck, where she really looks like now she's starting to stretch really from the base of the shoulders. And that's what we want, because remember, over time, we want that stretch to pull the withers up through the shoulders. And that can only do that if you get the horse really stretching deep and really stretching from the base of the shoulders. So the horse can really swing through like that. That's really good. And once again, if you go back and compare this trot to what we saw in the previous video, this is much improved. And once again, yes, she comes up a little bit every now and then, but you're doing a great job of just sending her forward. Just put your leg on and send the horse back deep underneath itself again, as you were doing. But we see here we're actually seeing a little bit of spring in the horse. Watch how the back end seems to be springing a little bit, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those hocks to work in the optimal manner. And we see how she made that downwards transition there a little bit. That kind of stumbled there a little bit. No big deal, but you did the right thing to just send her back on again. That's really good. Once again, look how much the horse is stretching to the base of that shoulder. That's really good. That will really get the horse free and swinging. Great work here. Yeah, I really want you to go back and look at your last video, because this trot is just so much better here. Of course, it's also really nice that you have this big open arena, which really helps. You know, people don't realize very often how hard it is for horses to go in little tiny arenas, you know. Any horse starting out, a 20-meter circle should be the smallest circle you should even consider trying to ride the horse on until it gets over its back and is quite consistent. And once again, the rhythm tells us. So if we try to make a smaller circle and we can't hold the rhythm, that tells you that the horse is not strong enough to do the work at that level and stay consistent. But we see in this big arena how much space you have, these nice big open turns. That's exactly what we want. You know, I see a lot of dressage riders sort of endlessly riding around on tiny, tiny little circles. You know, they just don't realize how much damaging that is to your horse's legs. Once again, especially if the horse is not over its back. Remember, getting the horse over the back is what puts the shock absorber system on the horse. So, you know, as we talked about in our previous video with this horse, we talked about reining and things like that a little bit. You know, and just how much damage it does to keep doing quick starts and sliding stops and things like that. You know, it's like taking your car and taking the shocks off and driving it. What would happen? Well, your whole car, you could buy a new car in a year with no shocks on it, the whole car would just rattle apart. Well, that's what happens to horses that are not being worked over their backs. Really good swing here. This has just been a really, really good session, and I feel like you're really getting the horse there. Like, that is beautiful right there. If you keep getting the horse like this horse is going to start really developing for you. And we can see there as she came around there, she's starting to pull the belly up a little bit. That's exactly what we want to see. Once again, a good shoulder forward there. And you see she swishes her tail a little bit. You know, you go into that. That's a little marish thing, I think, more than anything else. But you see, as soon as you stretch her back out, she gets comfortable in that. So, you know, that's exactly what you want to read the horse as you're going along. So if you feel the horse starting to that tail swishing and stuff, just straighten it out a little bit. It may be a little bit uncomfortable. You know, horses are always trying to tell us what they're feeling. You know, if we keep the work within what they're capable of doing, almost all horses become very pliable and very willing to do the work. And then we let them develop slowly, and then they have a good attitude towards the work. But when we see horses constantly grinding their teeth and swishing their tails and kicking out and some of the things that we see in the dressage ring, you know, that tells us how uncomfortable the horse is. Good, another nice leg yield away from the rail that time. That's all coming beautiful. And look how beautiful this stretch is. I mean, this horse's gaits are so much improved over your last video. This is really a big, big improvement. Look how big and swinging that is. Now, and you can see there as he starts to get to that point, once again, we see that belly starting to pull up a little bit there, and that's what we want to see. You know, she's just catching a little foot there. Now, you know, one thing to remember about having your horse barefoot, you know, if you hit even a little rock, you know, the horses can feel it, and you can really lane them up. So once again, you have a really nice big, this looks like it's a soft enough ring to be able to do this work in. Barefoot. But, you know, if you find the horse starts to stumbling a lot and, you know, every time you hit some little thing, you might want to consider putting shoes on the horse. But, you know, this looks like it's going along pretty well. I mean, the few little stumbles that she's done here have not been bad. This is really good. This time, you know, this is the first session I've seen that I really feel like you're getting this horse over its back now. So this is a great job. So know that getting her here, and once again, you see that belly is a little pulled up there. That's what we're looking for. So you're really getting this horse to a good place where it's working over its back, and everything will really start to develop really beautifully for you now that you can get this. That's wonderful right there. Once again, go back and look at how much longer this horse's neck is in this video, how it's stretching from the base of the shoulder. So that's really, really good work. So we can see here in this little shoulder fore how it kind of slows the horse down a little bit, but she's staying pretty well over her back. You know, you did a good job of correcting that there, and that's exactly what you want to do, just like that. And once again, as soon as you get through with it, stretch her back out again, as you did. You know, the beauty of the stretch, once again, isn't not only does it relieve all the tension in the horse's back, but, you know, we're always going to make mistakes when we ride horses. Everybody is going to. You know, but the beauty of the stretch is if we make a little mistake and the horse gets a little short for a little bit or resists a little bit, we come right back to the stretch and the horse forgives us our transgression, so to speak. So it's kind of like wipes the slate clean. You know, the horse goes, okay, let's start again. instead of trying to force your way through the wall. Once again, is what we see so often with horses, that people just have this idea that a horse has to be made to do everything, and instead of the idea that they can accompany you and actually become a willing partner in this work. Beautiful stretch here again. Once again, this is excellent. Really, really good work. And once again, we can see the belly pulling up a little bit. So once again, I'm even starting to see a little bit of thrust off this horse's back legs. And that is the horse starting to lift its body into the air. And once again, the first thing is to get an idea and an eye for when horses are on their forehand and when they're not. For instance, this horse, even when it's stretched down, is when it is least on the forehand. And that's for people to get. You look at a saddlebred horse that has his head way up in the air, or so many dressage horses today that are going exactly like saddlebreds, where they're just hollow in the back and lifting their legs up. That is not dressage. Remember, the foundation of dressage, the very principle, is the idea of doing work that will sustain the health of the horse. If your horse is hollow and you are riding it, you cannot sustain that for very long. This is why all hollow horses go lame long before their due date, so to speak. And once again, the canter here is better than we saw in the last video. It's more swinging and active. I feel like this is a more useful canter than what I saw in the past with the horse. More swinging that, like that's beautiful right there. Yeah, good job. So once again, everything is improving really well. Now look at that stretch there, and look at how bounced the horse. This is how much more flexion this horse has in the hocks. This is a much better, as I say, this is a good enough horse. If you continue to correct the problems this horse has and develop it correctly and bring it up, this horse should be a good enough horse to do whatever you want to do with it. That is, moving up into the upper levels. If you give the horse time to actually develop. Once again, you're going to see that hole there behind your saddle is going to completely go away, and the whole forehand is going to come up. The horse will change its appearance. But this is really good. Once again, look how nice and round the action is in this hocks. That's what we're looking for. If you put a little white dot, for instance, in the middle of the horse's hock, when it's working over its back, you'll see that that white dot is almost making a perfect circle. And that's what we're looking for. So when horses are hollow, we see that that circle isn't there. The trot either makes an ellipse or just swings straight and nothing happens at all. And once again, she tries to break into that canter a little bit. That's okay. You can see that that's still a bit of a struggle for her. Or him, I should say. Good there. Now that's a good canter. And once again, as long as you can get into the canter and then get this, I like how you did. You just didn't. This is really a good canter right there, where she really starts to stretch. That's what's useful. So we don't make a big deal at this level of those transitions, as you did. Just put the horse into the canter and then correct it. As the horse gets more and more over its back, those transitions will become easier and easier. So that was a much better canter. Everything is really improved on this horse. I love the work that you've done. Keep it up, because you really have the horse working over its back. So in your next few months, you're going to really see this horse start to develop if you can keep this up. So great work in getting the horse all the way there. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride with our good friend Meg and her horse Blynk. We look forward to seeing you next time at Art to Ride. Keep up the great work.